There we go. So we got this idea as I was traveling around. Some of these coaches that I meet at universities have a side hustle where they're coaching, anywhere from, 2 to 10 to 20 other clients on the side. And it just occurred to me that within our clientele at Fit, we have some coaches who have created not just a side hustle, but an entire business around uh, coaching. And I thought, well, let's get their expertise in. They've gone through a lot of trial and error as they built their business. And for someone that's an S&C coach at an institution that wants to start a side hustle, what can we teach them? And so we're super excited to have Ted Johnson on with us today. He's located in Minnesota. He is the founder, owner, and a coach at Performance Athletics. And we've got Ted set up to kind of give us an overview of how he built his business, some of the maybe uh, roadblocks that he ran into, and in hopes that he can help all of the attendees sort of uh, kind of do things a little smoother as they build up their side hustle. So, Ted, I would love if, before you jump in, if you would give us an introduction, uh, not just for your career, not just to performance athletics, but also to you as kind of your journey through life.
Awesome. Is there any, I can't see anybody. So
Yeah,
is
let me
there,
work on that. The view. I can't either, but I think that's just because we're attendees or panelists rather.
yeah. But yeah, so, well, hi everyone. I can't see you, but I'm looking forward to seeing you in a second whenever we figure this out. But yeah, so born and raised here in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, attended Cretin-Derham Hall High School. Um, you know, I was a, I was a pretty good athlete. Uh, you know, I was able to leverage that um, into getting a college scholarship. I was one of the top recruited guys in the country. I was fortunate enough. So that's kind of how my journey started. I played pro for 5 years, ended up getting cut. And the next question that my dad had for me was, well, what the hell are you going to do with your life? So most of my coursework in college was in psychology. I did a lot of stuff in the communications field. And again, still didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. And I was really passionate, about working with athletes. And again, like I said, I had a tremendous amount of success. That was like, what do you do? Uh, Again, I've had no mentors. I didn't have really any help in this process. And so I had to kind of figure it out on my own. So, the last team that I was cut from, as I was kind of staying in shape, some coaches reached out to me and said, would you be interested in being a volunteer strength coach? I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know what it entailed, but I knew it would afford me the opportunity to stay in shape, waiting for that next opportunity, and again, spreading some of kind of like the knowledge and wisdom that I had gained up to that point. I think I was 29 years old at the time, but the knowledge that I had had up to that point to share with some kids, and I took this volunteer job. It ended up turning into a paid position in 4 years. I helped the school turn out about 21 Division I athletes. And then so I realized I was onto something. And so uh, got an attorney, went ahead, which in most states is going to be about $140. I incorporated, and from there I started down this journey of coaching, training, and developing athletes. So that's just a little synopsis. And the one thing, and again, like I said, I can't see any of you guys. So, but I was going to say during this presentation, rather than holding your tongue and potentially waiting to the end and forgetting something that you want to ask, uh, if you know how to use this, you should be able to raise your hand. And at any time, you guys can click on that if you have a question about anything that I'm talking about. so I can answer your question, right on time. So the first, I'm sorry, go ahead, Landon.
No, that's perfect, Ted. Thank you. Yeah, we'll see if we can get the view to be other, and bring in all the other attendees for right now. But please jump in and tell us how to start a side hustle.
So, so what I wanted to start with, or the first question I was asked to address, and I'd say there's two ways to look at this, and I want you guys to think in this mode, whether you're in S&C or you're in private business, and again, I want to learn more about where some of you guys are at currently, so I could help you in that process. So, customer acquisition, so we've got from first client to 100 clients, and customer acquisition. Well, what does that mean? I think there's several parts to it. Number one is not knowing, where you guys are at in terms of business, how well versed you are and what the customer acquisition cost is. And I think that's important to understand. So when I first started, and that's why I said it's a two-part answer to this question. I didn't understand or know what customer acquisition cost was. And let me preface this by the book that all of you need to read, no matter what level of success that you're at, in my personal opinion, out of all the business books I've ever read in my life, the one that applies most to what we do personally and professionally is Zero to One by Peter Thiel. I have memorized that book up and down, backwards, forwards, you name it. Zero to One. In his book, there are 7 principles that your business needs to have to even be called a business, right? So if we're thinking side hustle, this falls into that category. I'll get more into that. Now, back to customer acquisition cost. If you don't know what that means, I could tell you really simple. You say, Ted, what does it cost you to acquire a customer? Great question. Here's the answer. Years ago, I came up with an assessment that we do, meaning you find us on the internet, Google, however you find us. So if you don't find us through the network effect, meaning word of mouth or somebody that we already know, a coach or a player, a referral that we train, some of you just found us organically on the internet, I'm going to check this out. Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to fill out an application online. You say, why do you fill out that application? Well, we want to know health history. We want to know everything that we could possibly learn about you before we ever shake your hand, because this is going to give us, a segue into what to talk about, right? So when you come in for your assessment, which takes 4 hours, by the way, we're going to get a chance to get to know you. You say, why is that important? Well, as important as it is to know what you need and what you want from your customers, it's important for you to know what you don't need and what you don't want from your customers. And not everybody's a good fit. And I say that to say most people don't ever think about that. Most people think about the money. And I would say it's not what the cost of doing something, it's what's the cost of not doing something. And, to end that point, I would say 99.9% of the times I have 0 refunds, because the people that go through this application process, and we wanted to create from a marketing perspective, like, ooh, I got to fill out an application, meaning we just don't take anybody. That's kind of like the subtle message that we send is, to be a part of performance athletics and what we do, you got to be a little different, without saying it, we just create this experience. So, so we have what we call performance and we have what we call strength. And again, this is customer acquisition. So the cost for us to get a customer is about 6 hours. You say, man, that's a really huge. Yeah, but for the same reason that we don't give refunds, and when we get the pricing in the end and we talk about it, I mean, the average person probably spends between $6,000 and $9,000. So I know, you say, well, what percentage of clients do you close? 100%. We don't lose. And part of the reason why we don't is because we go through that application process. So where are you from? What club are you a part of? What team? What goals do you think you have? All of these different things that we find out in this application process help us figure out if you're a good candidate for us. If you're not a good candidate for us, we don't even do the assessment. The assessment is really a way for you to figure out if you can handle what we do, because we're successful, we know it works, so it's almost putting the onus back on them. But I say that to say, and I bring that up, again, just addressing that first milestone, how you get that first client. If you've already got an established business, if you're a strength coach or, whatever it is you do, wherever your position or your sphere of influence is, you're more likely than not to meet people that don't know you or have any previous history with you. And so you're going to want to figure out if that person is a good candidate to work with you. I'm a big proponent and a big fan of less is more. There's so many businesses that I see where it's low hanging fruit and the barrier for entry is low in terms of what people charge. And so you get this whole range of people with completely different levels of commitment. I would argue if you peruse any of my social media, or I should say, it isn't just me, but you'll see that, our athletes are the best of the best. I've had, just in the last 3 months, I've had 3 guys get 50 million guaranteed. And I'm not bragging, but I'm telling you that to say, that's what happens when you are hyper focused and you target, your business and everything that you do towards the end goal. And interestingly enough, 3 of those guys, the collective that they got in guaranteed money was over 50 million, but three of those guys have been with me personally for over 15 years. And so when I get into some of these other questions, I chose, when I got started in this, and the advice that I would give to you from a side hustle, if you want to build a sustainable side hustle or business, take the most uncoordinated kids that suck, fat, out of shape, start them at 9, 10 years old. And just, again, going back to that $6,000 to $9,000 a year, most athletes, and I'm on the athlete side, are going to run through an 8-year cycle. Ted, what's that 8-year cycle? Well, you've got junior high, you've got high school, and then you've got college. And if you're really good and these guys are really talented and you're helping them get to where they go, 9 chances out of 10, they're probably going to go pro and they're going to stay with you, And so I came up with something, and again, this factors back into the customer acquisition. But when I sit down with parents, because, when you're talking about youth sports, and I just want to throw in real quick, if you guys don't know, when you read Peter Thiel, you can understand what's the market. The market is $40 billion. Matter of fact, youth sports is so big, it's bigger than all professional sports leagues' revenue, gross revenue. It's bigger than all professional sports gross revenue combined. So there's room enough for all of us, if you want to do a really good job. So, so from that perspective, again, knowing that this person's going to spend, be with us for, and again, I've had guys spend, and I'm not bragging, but I just want you guys to understand the opportunity, should this be a path you want to go down, $250,000 from one client over their lifetime, So you can really have and be successful, and you can really carve out a great niche and a great life for yourself by making, some of the right decisions. So before I move on, I would just ask, and if anybody wants to put any comments in so I can read, does that satisfy the question? Customer acquisition. How do you get a customer? How do you acquire a customer? And again, I'm talking about a person that has no familiarity or no connection to us. So that'll be the first part of customer acquisition. If I've answered that question, please give me a thumbs up or say yes. And then if I didn't, please ask, and then I'll fill in the blanks. But then I'm going to move on to the second part of customer acquisition.
Yeah, please, anyone, we've got folks that are able to raise their hand, and now they can unmute themselves if they have any questions, and go ahead. So Joshua, you've got a question for us.
Can we change the view, or we can't change the view? I still can't see anybody.
Yeah, they may have their videos off.
Okay.
But this way we can see if their hands are raised. And so Joshua, go ahead, and if you can, unmute yourself, and you can throw your question out.
All right. Hello.
Yes.
All right. So I actually can't turn my video on either, but my question is, I just, I'm a 22-year-old who just graduated college, and I've
Beautiful.
been doing strength and conditioning coaching for about 3 years at my old high school. And the biggest issue that I'm running into is that I'm inexperienced and I'm still young and I don't have any certifications. And my target market, you could say, is the consulting corporate world. So people who are working 60, 70 hour weeks who don't have time like students do to work out every day for hours. How would you say I build that credibility? I'm going to work on getting certifications and whatnot, but what are some other ways that I could build that credibility?
So, quick question, and that's actually a great question. Thank you so much for asking that question. And I was going to talk about this later, but you brought it up, which is this is awesome. Landon and I were chirping about this, but I would say you would definitely benefit from being at a place like a Lifetime Fitness.
Yep.
You say, why Lifetime Fitness? And again, just to answer your question, I mean, what part of the country do you live in?
I live in Chicago.
Ooh, baby. Oh my God. Have you seen the Lifetime in
Yes, I've been going to Lifetime.
Okay, so I say that, and let me preface if I didn't mention before I started my own business and my own company, I was one of the top managers at Lifetime over a 10-year period, two different 5-year
Okay.
stints. So I made Lifetime millions of dollars. As a matter of fact, depending on which managers you may or know or that don't know, I was the highest paid person in the company. Matter of fact,
Oh
I I
wow.
I killed the comp plan so much that they tore it up and they don't use that comp plan anymore. So I say that to say, um, being at a Lifetime and depending on where you're young and you're developing your skills, you will benefit. You don't even realize it, but I'm telling you because I went through this too. Uh, I think it's tough to go out and be a boss and be in charge when you've never been a follower. You know,
Yeah.
I was able to prove taking somebody else's system and somebody else's concept, and I maximized it and I killed it. I worked at and managed 3 different clubs that were in the worst areas of the Twin Cities that you could imagine. And
Hmm.
I achieved. And I benefited from having that business structure. I benefited from working with general managers and people in operations and understanding all components of the business from how the front desk works to how people are greeted. So if you notice, if you go to Lifetime, almost everybody that works at the front desk is pretty good looking.
Yeah.
Everybody always smiles. Everybody always smells good. They're dressed nice. That's by design. That's not an
Yep.
accident. The people in HR know what they're doing and they know what sells. You also learn the membership advisor, you get to learn the sales process, you get to learn all of these other components. When a person is looking at joining a club, and choosing a particular membership on why they join and potentially, what their needs are and what they want. If you guys didn't know, Lifetime has their own construction company and they have their own real estate and development company. You say,
Oh,
well,
wow.
Ted, what do you mean? Why do I care? Well, the buildings that their clubs are, and I was just telling Landon, they're building a building right now. It's $80 million. And you say 80 million, and 80 million is their cost. If you and I were to try to do what they're doing, it'd be double, you know, because they've got all the materials, they've got all the staff, they've got all the employees. I mean, they're so plug and play, it's not even funny. Matter of fact, Equinox is about to go up in flames because they just can't compete anymore. So I say that to say, as a person that doesn't have experience and doesn't have certifications, you go to a Lifetime, you benefit from putting on that uniform and wearing that name tag, and you're now working in a $50 million building, which you could probably never do on your own. And so most of the candidates or people that you're going to meet that are going to be potential clients will already be qualified for you. So you won't even really have to do anything but smile, and then teach them what you learned in school, which is, sets and reps and cardio and strength. And, you can start to learn a little bit more about the business. Now, if a person, if you guys don't mind, I just want to go off on a little bit of a tangent. So um, can explain to you what it looks like. So let's just say, you're saying, Ted, I want to make $100,000. So I'm just going to ask and answer it for you. Say, how do I do that? Well, one thing that nobody teaches you, and even if you worked at Lifetime, they wouldn't teach you this, but because I did, I've been through the process, right? So I've never made less. I made 100, 150 in a bad year. Plus I got an override from a management perspective. But one thing I would teach trainers is, how do I make 100 grand and make this worth it? Because Lifetime is 100% commission, meaning you only get to eat what you kill, and you're going to need to work 26 client hours a week, average, for 52 weeks to make 100 grand. I'm talking net after taxes, and so the one thing they don't teach you is, okay, 26 client hours. Well, how many hours do I have to work to sell to get paid for 26 client hours? And I'm going to tell you, I've never not been in the top 5. It's going to be about 60 hours a week that you're going to need to be on the floor, to be available, to do assessments, to get on the schedule, so you can fill, your time with paying customers. So you're going to have to work about 60 hours to get 26 paid client hours. And there's just not very many people that can work that much and be able to commit that type of time to be able to generate that type of work, to be able to sell that much training, to get paid that much. So does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Could I do a follow-up question?
Please do. That's why we're here, my friend.
Yeah.
Fire.
So I actually am gonna be starting a full-time job at Deloitte in August 5th. I didn't study kinesiology or anything like that. I studied data science. So, how would I kind of go about doing that at Lifetime as well as a full-time job?
So when we talk side hustle, and again, if you're just talking regular personal training, like
Yeah.
the average everyday client, it's actually kind of cool that you have the full-time position that's going to really kind of pay the bills and, keep the lights on,
Right.
so you can be really super selective with the people that you work with,
Okay.
and so that's how you would do it. And if you think about most Lifetimes, and I think you're in Chicago, are you in a suburb like Burr Ridge?
Yeah, so I go to the Old Orchard Lifetime.
Okay. So you're like, yeah, okay. So, which is perfect, because you can kind of get your feet wet without making too big of a commitment, and then just kind of and kind of get that experience. So, I think you're in a perfect position, and I like the fact that you already are gainfully employed. So it's not sink or swim, I mean, you can kind of navigate and figure out kind of some nuance, develop an identity for yourself, and then the other component that we're actually going to talk about here a little bit later is, you know, as you figure out like kind of like what's your style or kind of like what's your specialty, as you figure out what you're good at, so being a data science guy, maybe you really embrace, nutrition, and then that becomes something that allows you to separate yourself from other trainers, because it's like you don't compete, but you kind of do compete with other trainers when you're in that environment, because you only get to eat what you kill. But the fact that you have a full-time job and you don't really need the quote unquote income, and you're just doing it because obviously I imagine you have a passion for it and you love working with people, it's a great way for you to begin the process of learning what you're good at, what you're not good at, learning your strengths. From a training perspective, again, I don't know if you have an athletic background or not, but figuring out immediately how you differentiate yourself, and so again, I'm just going to reference 0 to 1. And one of the 7 principles is understanding your competition, and there's a term that he uses called undifferentiated competitors. So when a member comes in wherever you're at, and you're trying to sell your service to them, how do you distinguish or differentiate yourself from them? If you were to ask me that question, how do I distinguish, what we do, from other people, what I would call undifferentiated competitors, is technology. And that's the easiest way to do it. I've invested in, and I own, and I use technology that very few people on the planet have. It's cost me millions. to get this technology and to have this stuff. And that's one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves from competitors.
Okay.
Ted, one other question came in from Andrew Reynolds, and Andrew, if you can unmute yourself, I think you have some great questions based on some things Ted has discussed.
You guys hear me okay? I'm in a coffee shop, so sorry if there's background noise.
Oh, no worries. Well, I'm looking at your
Awesome.
question here. You know, what KPIs do you look for in a potential client during the onboarding process? So for us, for me, and again, I've molded my life around training athletes, and that is, do you want to be a pro? You know, that's kind of the number one, and I'm talking 9 or 10 years old. Like, I need to understand, how committed are you to this process? You know, and that's the number one thing I'm looking for. Because you say, why would you do that? Well, because nobody makes it to the pros by accident, you know. Nobody, you know, and so because I know what that journey's like personally, you know, because we've developed so many young people into pros, into the best, you know, in their respective age groups and whatever their sports are, you know, that's the one thing that I look for from them, you know. Now, again, because most of the kids that are coming in, obviously we want to learn and get to meet the parents so we understand what their support system is like. So does this kid have the talent, has all the ambition, but they're lacking resources? Does this person, do the parents believe in this kid as much as the kid believes in themselves? You know, so these are a couple of things that we look at, or I would call a KPI, you know. So again, I happen to have, does everyone on the call know what peak height velocity is? Yay or nay? I don't know if they can respond, but I say that to say, if you don't know what peak height velocity is, you know, I'll share some information with Landon. He can share with everyone that was on the call today. But peak height velocity is essentially a way for you to determine, you know, where this kid is going to be physiologically in terms of their development by the age of 18. So you can almost project, you know, where this kid is going to end up by looking at some factors, you know, like torso length, you know, hip to knee, you know, knee to ankle, you know, how big their feet are, how big their hands are. You know, I mean, I'm 5'8", but I have a 5'11" wingspan, you know, which is, so people are like, oh, you can dunk. I'm like, yeah, because I got long arms. Not necessarily because I could jump so high. So anyway, but that's, you know, for me, and what we do, you know, I'm looking for people that have a long-term interest in development, you know, and are going to trust us with that responsibility. You know, and then again, the follow-up that you had, Andrew, is which questions help you the most when deciding whether this could be a potential client or not. For us in the athlete world, and then I think you would find this in the regular personal training world, is, and that's why, again, I just bring up Lifetime. You know, most people that, just because I've been on the back end of doing the research of the people that have memberships in Lifetime, you know, most of them, you know, they're 6-figure earners. You know, they drive BMWs and Audis. You know, they make certain lifestyle choices. So it's kind of built in, you know, that they're people of means, you know, and I think the one thing that we can't forget, you know, if I'm mentoring any of you guys, is the money is part of the measuring stick of, am I successful or not? You know, you're no good as a trainer if you're just training people for nothing. You know, I mean, I would think, you know, you want to get paid, and you should get paid, and you should value your time. You know, another thing people don't think about, you know, and I reference those 26 client hours, is how much time do you spend on program design? You know, most of your program design, unless which I think is complete negligence, if you're making up your workouts on the spot, you're going to spend your personal time program design for people, you know. So we talk about the fit software, which I absolutely am in love with. I'll get to that later. but it's such an awesome tool that minimizes the time that you have to spend in program design, so you're really efficient. And so you can deliver what I call continuity of care, which I took from the healthcare industry, but you can administer continuity of care to your clients by having a system like Fit, because it tracks everything, and you can give them feedback that's going to drive the results you seek. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, Ted, no, that's perfect. I loved how you talked about like kind of like the long term, the buy-in. Like these kids got to know super early, but it's not just the kids, it's the parents, and then getting everyone on the same page is awesome. Not only from building that client rapport, building that relationship throughout the years, by when they get to the age of 18, it's a perfect moment for them to realize, hey, how much have I grown in this last 8 years? And then also how much can I still grow? So thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, honor and a privilege, my friend. Next question.
Ed, one question, following up. You kind of gave the idea that to Joshua of, hey, go to Lifetime, and I think probably you were saying start to watch their processes, their business processes, and then you can apply those to your own practice. If I'm a S&C coach already, I've got a full-time job at a university. What are the things I may not be able to go kind of moonlight in the evenings at Lifetime? What are the things that you took away from that experience that we could tell someone in my position?
So if I understand it correctly, are you talking about an S&C that wants to apply a side hustle? So the thing that I was going to throw out, and we were going to get to this later, but technology, right? So are you going to build, do you have the bandwidth, when you take your S&C role? So most of these guys, depending on what role you have and what school you're at, they've got rules, and they've got lines that you can't cross. So you have to understand your contract and what you're limited to, or what you can say or can't say. And I can tell you, and again, I apologize for using Lifetime, but just a great example. For years, Lifetime had handcuffed their staff, meaning you couldn't have a social media account, you couldn't post on Instagram, you couldn't, because they were so afraid that their trainers would end up being bigger than the brand itself, and they wanted to control the message. And then, like many people, and knowing how young some of you guys are, there was a point in time where you couldn't log into Facebook. The Wi-Fi would block you. You couldn't post, and now everybody does it. People are walking around with cameras, and so as the world evolved, Lifetime, and just using them as an example, just realized that they can't control it. No matter what. They're just it's too much bandwidth for them to police it. So they just ask for people to respect and have kind of like a common courtesy with regard to how they post on social media, because you can't get fired for it, fired for cause. And all people, and even at the S&C level, unless you have a guaranteed contract, which most guys don't, you're what's considered an at-will employee, which means you can be fired for cause. The one thing that I do love about where the law, and I don't know if you guys know this, but the Supreme Court said you can no longer, you cannot fire someone for, God, I'm trying to think of the term, but, or non-competes. You can't enforce a non-compete. And in the past, when you joined an organization like Lifetime or Equinox or some of these other big boxes, they would make trainers sign these non-compete clauses, and it would mean that you couldn't work anywhere within a certain mile radius. And the Supreme Court, for all employment, but it really hits the training field, that they no longer at the state or federal level enforce non-competes. So you could quit the next day and go across the street and open up your business, and there's nothing they can do about it. So power to the people, right? But yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Landon?
yeah, that's great. So yeah, please go ahead. Thanks, Ted.
So, and so the other thing, and I would say specifically to the strength coach field, the network effect, how to, if I want to get clients or gain clients. And I imagine if you're an S&C at the college level, you're working in a particular sport. Now, Corey, I know when he was at the University of Minnesota, was doing women's soccer, he was doing volleyball and doing some of the other things that fell under an umbrella of Olympic sports. And so again, and I'm just going back to, if you're going to do the side hustle, do you have the infrastructure to do online, like an online platform to spread the gospel of what it is that you're doing? So I'll ask and see if any of you guys know Andy O'Brien. Does anybody on here know Andy O'Brien? Yes or no? If you can type.
I do not.
Okay, so Andy O'Brien is Sidney Crosby's strength coach. And so he's built, because obviously he's got the best hockey player arguably that's ever lived. He's built a massive, and I'm talking massive, online training business with Excel spreadsheets, and it's just, he's in a huge position, as he gets paid about, I think, $800,000 to $1 million a year by the Pittsburgh Penguin franchise. He also gets paid by Sidney Crosby because that's his client. And then he also has guys like Nathan McKinnon and you name it, because I want to say Sidney Crosby lives in Calgary, and there's just a ton of pro hockey players that live in that area. But I do know, because I train a ton of pro hockey players here in the Twin Cities, that he just emails guys programs on Excel sheets. They fill in the blanks and they send them back. And he's been immensely successful. So I know there's platforms like Train Heroic, and there's some other ones. I'm actually working on one myself, where all of the videos are uploaded and they're in there and you have access. But there's some technology that they need to purchase, but people do it all the time. And, again, going back to that book, 0 to 1, which all you guys are going to read, how do I go get these people? So if I'm an S&C, going down to the high school level and finding developmental kids that either can subscribe, if you've got the infrastructure, or figuring out times where you can interact, with those kids, and then have those kids in some sort of a subscription model, kind of pay for your guidance, with regard to, what their training looks like. And depending on where you're at, some high schools don't have the budgets to have strength coaches or have a high level professional. So there's a huge opportunity. Again, remember the market, I told you it's $40 billion market, so for every, high school that's got, like in Texas, these $50 million stadiums and all that, for every one of those, there are 20 schools that don't have that, And so there are a lot of smaller schools that could really benefit from having your leadership. If you, I don't like to use the word marketing, but if you go out and you connect with those coaches, and let them know that you would be a resource and you would be willing to help those guys. And coaches have egos. So a lot of times they're not going to ask for help, so, don't feel ashamed or be embarrassed by just saying, hey, hey, coach, I can really help you, and then working with that particular person, to help not only add a little extra income to, to your life, but also continue, what I would call your mission. And I think all of us, correct me if I'm wrong, are in this, because we like to help people, so I think you can, it's a win for everybody. If that answers, Landon, does that answer your question? Okay. So next question,
I got excuse me, I'm sorry, I got a quick question. My name is Anthony Hibbert. I've been here for 20 years. Me and you are probably about the same age. Been pro ball, Power 5 football, but over 20 years now. But we're talking about this, model as far as corporate world and things like that. But when you're talking about being a strength coach and it being a side hustle, that conflict of interest of you working with a professional, or working with a collegiate student, as well as you trying to train on the side and potentially being a potential recruit. So how do you navigate that, realm?
Great. I was going to say, great question. So I do know in our state, and I know all the laws are different. I'm pretty well versed. I'm pretty well versed in NCAA compliance in terms of what you can do and where you can do it. So it's one thing if you it's one thing if you're doing the training on the premise of where the college is, like where you work. And then it's another thing if you're doing that training in a private facility, all bets are off. You know, so that jurisdiction of NCAA compliance does not extend to a private facility. Now, it'd be one thing, you know, just so like I forget the gentleman's name. He's at North Carolina. And now it's one thing if you're in the private facility and you have on like North Carolina gear and you're using your position of influence as an agent of the university because you're a contract employee. And the only reason why I know is just because in the state of North Carolina, all the S&C coaches, they're all public employees. So you can go online and see what their salary is. But when you're in a private facility, you're your own person. You're not acting as an agent of University of North Carolina or any other Power 5 school, if that makes sense. You know, so you can go ahead and work with amateurs and or pros, you know, outside of those particular the guidelines of your contract. Also, if it wouldn't be considered on what's called company time, you know, so depending on what your contractual agreement is with the university that you work at, what you do on your own time, they don't have any jurisdiction over. You know, the only problem that they could say, this is a conflict of interest, and they could potentially ask you to stop. But it's no different than if I know this sounds funny, but if you like drove Uber to make a little extra money, you know, and you were doing it outside of the confines of your contractual hours with the university, they can't stop you from making money. You can't enforce, like I had mentioned before, you can't enforce a non-compete clause. The Supreme Court won't do it. You know, no different than if you guys all saw that went viral. The coach at Texas, the baseball coach at Texas A&M said, "I love it here and I'm never leaving." And the next day he signs with Texas. They can't stop you. And he had a contract. They can't stop you. The Supreme Court won't enforce it. So you won't have any conflict of interest there as long as, like I said, you're in a private facility and you don't have your gear on or your name tag, or you're not, you know, you're not an agent of the university. You're on your own personal time. No different than if you took some guys off the school campus and you were at a park or you were at a high school. You're not violating the terms of your contract. You know, if someone messages you on social media or whatnot, hey, can you do this, or can we do some speed work? You know, you won't have anything to worry about.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So say you have your own, your LLC, right?
Yep.
And but you're working your business, say your brick and mortar is your garage.
Yep.
Now that's still fine.
You're allowed, and that's the great thing. You're allowed that, man, which is great for you, which I'm glad to hear that you got your LLC because you're incorporated, you're covered. You know, the only thing that, and I don't know what certifications that you have, but as long as, so I'm legally required in the state of Minnesota, I have to carry, you know, I forget, I'm at $5 or $6 million worth of insurance, personal and professional insurance I have to have on my facility. I have to carry another policy. So I've got 3 different policies that I have to cover. And then also through NSCA or NASM, you can get professional insurance for $100 a year, you know, and as long as you meet that requirement and you're in your garage, you're straight.
Yeah, I just worry about that whole conflict of interest because, you know, you have like you be working at a college and guys like things to fill the gap. You know, when they want things to fill the gap, and you want to be able to help them with that. But at the same time, you have to, within your position, you have to take care of your business there, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, and again, you know, so I was just in his wedding. So my boy Tiger Jones is a speed development coach for the Florida Gators. You know.
yeah, I know Tiger.
You know, up there, so you already know that Tiger does stuff all the time, like speaking. Dietz, you know, if any of you guys know Cal Dietz. I mean, you know, I was on the board for Catapult for 10 years. I mean, you know, Mike Potenza. I mean, I know so many guys that work for different organizations and they do stuff on the side. And some schools actually like it, you know, because they like the fact that people are looking at the person that holds that position at their school as a high level, high performance guy. And so they actually support you in that because they recognize it doesn't take away from. I mean, I don't know if you know Mick Marotti at Ohio State. You
Yep.
know, Mick does stuff all over the country. You know, they use different technologies, and he speaks at different things for different technology companies that they use. And Ohio State doesn't see it as a conflict of interest. As a matter of fact, they love it. You know, I mean, Lauren Landau just got hired at Notre Dame. It's his first year at Notre Dame, and if you know him, he's bounced around in the pro world, and this is
Yep.
his first. This is his first college position. And you know, so I know Jack Swarbuck and everybody at Notre Dame, and they know he's got Landau Fitness. They know he's got a company. They know he's written books. Like they don't see it as a conflict of interest because they know he's a high level guy. So yeah, I don't think you'll have anything to worry about from that perspective, especially whether it's in your garage or in your backyard or in a park. You know, as long as you know you're not like in the school's premises, you know, quote unquote, after hours, I think you'll be fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So if I'll go on, Landon, won't go
Yeah,
over the next
please.
question. All right, sweet. So, so messaging, what to say to potential clients, you know, does it change with each milestone? Again, I go back to, you know, one of our core principles or core values is why are you even here? You know, most of our guys and girls, if you were to talk to them or pull them to the side, they're all going to say, I want to be the best. I want to be a pro. I want X, Y, and Z. They fill those three buckets. And, you know, 9 chances out of 10, their parents have the money. And, you know, and actually, this is another thing that I would actually bring up. And so obviously, I think everybody can see that I'm African American, right? And in the past, because again, I've had no mentors nor guidance in this, you know, there were, I don't want to say I've discriminated against my own people, but what I would tell you is, and what I've learned is never judge a book by its cover. You know, I've met with people that in a million years, I would have never thought that they had the money to pay me. And I've had people say, listen, man, I can't give you this, but I can give you this, you know? And so it's like, man, how do I address that? Right. I don't want to, it's unfair to my other clients that pay full here to have this person not pay full. So I want to have integrity, you know, so no one can ever question, you know, the integrity of our principles or our values, you know. So I've had a guy say, hey man, he said, my son wants to be here. He wants to train with you. I can't give you 9,000 like this, but I can give you 9,000 like this. I said, okay, I'm gonna take that deal. So if it comes in 500 and 400 and 200 and 300, we still take it, you know, because that person met the criteria that we wanted on the front end in terms of how committed they were, what their talent or their skill level was, you know, and what they were trying to achieve. And, you know, based on that application, were they a good fit for us? And so, you know, so we take that client, you know, at each milestone. And again, you guys have heard me say, I've had some guys 15 years, you know, and we're going to be together. I mean, it's better than a marriage. So we'll be together till they retire, you know, and I'm happy if you guys know football. So Greg Jennings, client of mine, he retired with us. You know, Kyle Rudolph, I was with him the last half of his career, and he retired with us. So we didn't get fired. They didn't go work with somebody else. When they said, I'm done, I'm hanging up the cleats, we were the first ones to know, you know, and, you know, our training relationship ended, and then now we're a really good friend, and we consider each other family. And that's one of my earmarked, I guess, to answer the question, messaging. One of my most proud achievements is when guys retire with us. You know, they didn't fire us and go work with another trainer because they thought they were better. You know, we helped them make millions. And when they were done, they ended their career with us, you know. So, and again, programming, you know, this kind of goes back to when I talked about, do you have the technology or infrastructure to support, you know, remote versus in-person programming, you know? And that, so I think I answered that question with, you know, whether it's Train Heroic, whatever platform you have. You know, I've been in a pretty unique position where I've developed, so I have 2 iPad apps. I've developed iPad apps. I've actually developed my own software that we ran. It was in the App Store for 10 years until the requirements that Apple had for developers were just so ridiculous. I couldn't maintain, you know, the upkeep of that app, you know, without it taking up too much of my time. What advice would I give for programming, you know, for Gen Pop versus athletes? So one of the things that I wanted to hang my hat on as a professional was that I never, ever, ever, ever in my life trained Gen Pop to make money. I always wanted to be a person when I was in an environment like this to say, I've made all my money and all the success that we've had coaching, training, and develop athletes. And I'm not picking on anybody that trains Gen Pop. I get it. But I never needed to train Gen Pop to make a living. You know, I was able to focus on just training athletes. Now, that being said, I think there are a lot of parallels, but the only challenge that I have with Gen Pop, you know, so if you're training a mom that's got young kids, you know, I can tell you statistically, she's going to cancel on you about 40% of the time because something's going to come up, whether it's orthodontist, it's a sporting event. And, you know, most people that have money, their kids are in so many different activities. It's hard for them to carve out time for themselves. So you're going to get a lot of cancellations, you know, when you're working with Gen Pop, especially executives and high level people that want your services. These people are overcommitted and busy. And working at Lifetime, that was one of my struggles in managing my staff was, you know, I'd be able to pull up and see what the schedule was and see what everybody's schedule was, who they had scheduled and when, you know, and then I could push a button and tell you how many times people would cancel on them. And you say, what's the point? Well, depending on how you get your money, you know, and now just using Lifetime as an example, and other big boxes are the same. Let's just say you sell a $10,000 package. In the past, you know, at Lifetime, you sell 10,000, you get all that 10,000 on one paycheck. And then now you're left to service all of that $10,000 worth of training. Well, Lifetime figured out that trainers would sell these massive packages and then bounce with the money. So they changed their system. So now, you know, let's say you sell a $10,000 package, you get 20%, you know, on your paycheck. And then the remaining amount of money is spread out over the amount of sessions that that person purchased. So when that person quits, and I would tell you about 80% of the people never finish their training, all falls to the bottom line for the company, not you, you know? And so that's one of the things you have to ask yourself when you get into, and I'm going to talk about the segue into pricing right now, but when you get into doing Gen Pop and working with adults or executives or high level people, you know, 90% of those people will miss a considerable amount of training. And, you know, if in the back of your mind, you're going, well, I got paid, I don't care. Well, you should, because those people aren't going to get the outcomes that they desired when they started with you, you know, and that can ultimately impact your wallet because you're not going to develop or have the reputation that you want for getting results that you say when people don't show up. On the flip side, for us, what I've done, and I'll just segue into pricing here real quick, is we've got 3 memberships, level 1, level 2, level 3, and it's flat rate. You can show up as many times as you want. We're here already. So the more you show, the cheaper it is, but we still get our nut, our big nut. And, so you say, so the 9,000, so essentially somewhere between and $1,000 a month. If you're there 10 times, if you're there 2 times, we still get the money. And most people realize the more often they come, the cheaper it gets, And so if you've ever been to a Core Power, or you've ever been to any other, like a yoga, a lot of them, they have the same thing. They sell you a membership, whether it's student or otherwise, student, professional, executive, but you get to come to that establishment and take as many classes as you want, or yoga teacher training, you get a discount, whatever it might be. But that's a Core Power pricing model. And again, I was with Lifetime for so long. Lifetime stole Core Power's business model years and years ago, because they have Life Power Yoga, if any of you guys have ever been there. But they stole their model to do it, as far as like the classes that you take. And that's why you just pay a membership fee and you can go to as many classes as you want. Whereas personal training in the Lifetime system falls under a different category. But I say that to say, we came up with, I just use a membership system where they pay a flat rate per month, and then it's a contract. So it's a minimum of 3 months. So again, as most people are figuring out if we're a good fit, we're never going to get less than $3,000 from anybody that signs up. Because if you quit halfway through, we keep the money. And it just wasn't a good fit. But you're not going to waste my time. And that's how you have to feel about your time. Treat yourself like you're the highest level professional that you can. And it is important from time to time to fire clients. I won't use this gentleman's name. He's a multimillionaire first round pick. And I fired him because he wasn't consistent. And regardless of what he paid, what I needed and wanted from the relationship that I couldn't get was, so I turned the money down. Well, here's the money. And he just like threw some money in, kind of like not in my face, but here's your money for the year, nah, dude, I'm cool, man. I love you. We're not angry. I said, give me a hug. I love you, but nah, dude, I said, and you know what, my exact words were, we provide absolutely no more value to you anymore. So, you don't really need us, so
Ted,
questions,
yeah,
pricing.
Ted, I just wanted to open it up for some questions here.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at Tyson, you're kind of, wow, great question. You can, well, so when you talk about avatars and then social media funnels, it's really, in my opinion, people are looking for, what no one says is people are looking to connect. I think just having kind of like an online avatar where I'm just kind of getting that, you can get all that for free on YouTube, so this is just my professional opinion, that people are looking to connect. Now, Andy O'Brien, when he's doing his online stuff, he's very active, and he's arguably the best in the field, and he works with the best player that's ever lived. So unless you come from that sphere of influence, it's hard to get people that haven't had the opportunity to connect with you in some way, shape, or form. I see marketing stuff online, and a lot of stuff I think is kind of like a gimmick, because they make it look easier than it really is. Not that you can't do it, but I just think it's tough. I think it's tough. I think it's really tough.
Basically just build a tribe, build a community, and then get your offers in after you've kind of built that up.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you, so does everybody on here know who Alex Hormozi is?
Yep.
Okay. So again, it's, how he made his money, sleeping on the gym floor, building clients. Now he's got his sphere of influence so large. Now he can completely step away because he's proven the concept, right? But until you prove that concept, it's going to be tough for you, because you don't have this, like I want to say, for all intents and lack of a better word, kind of like a global identity as this person that forged himself from fire, and slept in a gym, and because that's the other thing, what's your story? What's the story that you're selling? Why should I choose you? Not that you can't build a tribe or build a community, but that's why I want you guys to read that book, 0 to 1, because, again, and I'm just throwing this out there, but you'd be an undifferentiated competitor. How is your training going to be different? How are you going to, acquire clients, and what level of interaction will you need, even if you try with AI? AI is all over the place. I mean, if you just say, hey, write me a paper on the benefits of chicken breast, man, AI is going to be all over the place. You're going to have to end up editing it. It's not perfect. It's not flawless. So it's going to be really tough to do, unless you started with nothing, developed kind of a sphere of influence, and then grew it out so you can scale it. And Peter Thiel's book talks about a monopoly, an economy of scale. Like, how do you build that? You essentially have to do something that no one's ever done before, And again, and I would always say, like, what's the story? What's the story behind why that person is it weight loss? Is it muscle building? Is it, what are you selling to people? And then that just takes us back to the first question we had. Have you factored in what your customer acquisition cost is? I mean, my website that I have currently cost me $50,000. The website that I'm working on right now, which I'll put a link. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you think. $150,000. So again, what's your customer acquisition cost to start your business or to scale your business? I mean, anybody could do, go on GoDaddy and but I'm talking about a really nice website, bells and whistles, high resolution, 8K photographs, how you're going to build that business to scale. It's really, really tough if the story that you're telling or selling isn't so compelling that people say, man, I got to do this, Did I answer your question? Was that helpful or not very helpful?
Yeah, you did. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Ted, going along on Tyson's question, he asked about, an example of how you market yourself. If I wanted to go on and do a 60-second sort of advertisement video for my side hustle, what are the right things that I need to tell potential clients?
Yep. So again, it's what is your story? So what do you do that's unique? So none of you guys have asked, but I'll ask and answer it for you. What makes performance athletics unique? We don't lift weights. We don't lift weights. So you won't find anybody globally that does what we do the way we do it, or has our system, or been able to even get the results that we've been able to get, And so when you look at the technology companies, and again, Landon, I'll put these links in so people can see all the commercials that we've shot. We were fortunate enough before Athos got bought out for, I don't know, 500 million or something like that. We had shot, they flew the Red Bull team from Colombia to here in Minneapolis in my facility, and we shot commercials in the freezing cold. We made it look like it was summertime, but trust me, it's 10 below zero. But we shot these commercials that went viral, and the company probably spent maybe $500,000 on those commercials and those photo shoots, So I say that to say we were married to, and we continue to be married to, technology that not everybody is either had access to or knows about, that allows us to differentiate ourselves from the competition. And that's how we continue to win. And so that's really our story. People say not lifting weights. What do you mean? It's leverage. You know, if you go watch any of the videos, I've had videos. I had a video. If you guys know who Tyler Conklin is, he's probably one of the most underrated tight ends in the NFL. He's in a contract year. He's about to get a ridiculous contract. You know, I had a video with him that went viral. It's like 18,000 views, you know, and it's him doing a single leg squat that I developed, and people just have just gone goo goo gaga crazy. And to me, I see it every day. But again, it's, you have to find or create, you know, Landon, you asked about 60 seconds. You have to find or create a viral moment or something that can stick in someone's head about what it is that you do that makes you different. So they say, I want to be like that person, or I want to train there. Now, the other thing, Landon, if I can follow up, and I wanted to share this with everyone, is so I feel a type of way about trainers or people that train that post their own workouts. I think it's completely unprofessional. And the reason why I say that is people aren't coming to you because of what you do in a workout. They want to see your clients do it. They don't want to see you work out. I always ask myself, like, why guys, particularly, and girls do it too. And there's a couple of women that I want to mention here. And Josh is from Chicago. I think he knows this one lady, but she loves to post all these workouts and stuff she does. And I don't post in the comments, but I just want to say, go get some clients. Quit posting your workouts. We don't want to watch you. You know, go help somebody. You know, so I say that to say, like, I have a personal and professional standard is, like, I'm as strong as an ox. I do all kinds of crazy stuff, calisthenics wise. I can do 2-finger muscle up, but you know what? No one cares. You know, they want to see what your clients can do, and they want to see what you do for your clients. You know, so I say that to say, when you think about parents or whoever's going to be the consumer, you know, your consumer group, I think you have to ask, what is it that they want to see? And I think what's pervasive and what they want to see more than anything is how can you help my kid? You know, or if you're a personal trainer, you know, how can you help me? I know you look great and you inspire me, but how do I know you're not just genetically blessed? You know, how do you know what I mean? So I say that to say, you know, when you talk about 60 seconds and how I create this, you know, answer this question and tell this story, what makes me different? Which I know you're going to read 0 to 1 and you're going to really quantify that and figure it out. But I think in your story, you have to convey that you are somehow, some way at an expert level, you know, without saying it. So it's not necessarily it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I think if anyone watched any of my videos, I think I'm articulate. I think my tone and my pitch, you know, I don't talk too fast. I don't talk too slow. And I think a person that doesn't know me would look at that and say, this person knows what they're doing, you know, and that's, I'll share some commercials with you guys so you guys can see it. And so as you do it for yourself, you know, I've been on the cover of different publications. I have the news media have been out. There's different interviews I've posted on, you know, my Instagram, and getting the local media involved. And these are all things you guys can do in your community, as you mentioned. And I think Anthony was his name, Hibbert, to talk about, or building your tribe, you know, as you build this community and try to build this community. So you want to be somehow, some way, however you do it. And I just use Alex Ramosi as an example, but he became, you know, this influencer in his community, which grew, and everybody's in love with his story, like that he was going to kill himself. And I didn't want to live anymore. And when everybody rejects you, you have no choice but to love yourself. Like, he spins these stories. It's so compelling. How do you not love the guy? Right. So those are the types of things, you know, that you'll need and want to do, to raise and increase the visibility, you know, of your brand and to be successful.
That's fabulous. Any other questions? Ted, you've been so generous with your time. At the same time, I know you are super excited to mentor and help anyone. So I just wanted to make sure that we got everyone else's questions answered. Any other thoughts before we close? You can chat or just unmute yourself.
Ted, is there any way that we could be able to reach out to you moving forward from this?
Yeah, yes, please. Yes, indeed. And I was explaining to Landon just to provide, give you guys some background, man, is I've had absolutely zero help. Like I didn't have any mentors, I don't have a big brother. When I started in this, you know, I just had no help and I made so many mistakes and I did so many things wrong, which is why anytime I get an opportunity to get on these platforms and speak about my experience, so I would offer any and all of you, any help that you need, in this process and in this journey, that I could help you on. So if Landon can share, I think on the registration, it has my social media or LinkedIn, however you want to connect or contact me, connect with me, and I would gladly spend time with any of you guys, helping you figure out, what this journey looks like for you in this field, and whatever I can do to help. And for me, it's just paying it forward, simply because I had no one. I wish this stuff would have been available to me, as I was going through this evolution in the training business. So
I would like to say this for myself. I'm sure I can speak for some others probably in this group, but I really do appreciate you taking the time today. Like I'm very grateful and appreciative of your time and the wise words that you've given us.
Yeah, no, like, one thing I always tell everybody, for me, it's an honor and a privilege to serve. My dad was a sergeant in the Air Force. My brother's the highest ranking Navy SEAL on the planet. He's a master chief. And I only share that because in my family, failure is not an option, so so I say that to say, like, that's why I enjoy giving back, because in the later stages of where I'm at professionally, I have been able to find some help with regard to business consulting and things like that. And I can teach you guys, I know we don't have the time here, but I can teach you guys how to leverage some local resources on the business side, if it is in grants or other things, so you guys can continue to grow your businesses. There's room for all of us. The market's 40 billion. So, I think we're stronger together than we are not. And I think, by us collectively all being kind of on the same page and having these professional standards, we raise the bar for our field. And that means that we can charge more money and we're valued and we make more money and we spend less time working and we enjoy our lives and our families, and all the things that life has to offer, because we raise the bar for ourselves professionally. So, that's one of the things that I enjoy doing. So that's why when I say it's an honor and a privilege to serve, that comes from my dad, who was in the military. He was a sniper himself. He was a general overall badass. He's actually on my screensaver right now. And my brother's he's 6'7", 270. I'm just for reference, I'm 5'8", 200. This dude's 6'7", 270. I'm gonna put Landon, I'm gonna put a picture of him in I can't tell you his name. He's on a kill capture mission currently in Europe, but I'm gonna share a picture of him. And but he's 6'7", 270.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing.
It's an honor. That's why I say it's an honor and a privilege to serve, just because from that military background that we have.
I put the link to Ted's website, Performance Athletics, in the chat. And that's probably as good a place as any to start trying to get in touch with you in various forms. So
yeah, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that good stuff. So again, if there's any way I can help any of you guys, let me know. we'll reconnect. We'll reconnect again at some point here in the near future. And I mean, maybe I don't know, Landon can find a way for me to hop on another webinar here this month. I think there's a couple more dates that they have, and and if we get some good feedback about this experience that you guys had, I'd love to hop back on and help as many people as I can.
Thank you so much, Ted. This has been fantastic. Thank you for your generosity.
Well, it's an honor and a privilege to serve.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have
everyone.
a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Ted. Have a good one.
You too.
Landon.